Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Radical Center. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to share a quick update. After a lot of thought and reflection, my co host Cody has decided to step away from the show to focus on other priorities in his life right now. This podcast has always been a space for open dialogue, curiosity, and honest conversations, and Cody brought a ton of insight, energy, and heart to every episode. I'm incredibly grateful for everything he's contributed to the Radical Center since day one. And even though he won't be behind the mic anymore, his presence will always be a part of the DNA of the show. I wish him nothing but the best on what's next, and I know a lot of you will too. As for the future, the conversation isn't going anywhere. I'll be continuing to host, explore new topics, and bring on fresh voices as we keep pushing into the nuance and the complexity that makes the Radical Center what it is. And for now, let's get into this week's episode. First, let's start talking about Mark Carney's recent trip to Washington. Because while it may have looked like a routine diplomatic visit, I think it's a lot more significant than that. Let's be blunt. Canada is hurt. Tariffs have hit steel, aluminum, and the auto sector. These are sectors that communities across this country depend on. Jobs, investments, supply chains, they're all trembling at Washington's daily whims. Carney arrived at a moment when our historic alliance is fraying, when the US started behaving less like a partner and more like a marketplace bully. Let's be honest. Canadians are getting impatient, and I don't think Mark Carney can afford to ignore that for too long. His latest trip to Washington, his second in just a few months, felt like another round of polite diplomacy with very little to show for it back home. No breakthrough, no deal. Just more photo ops and vague reassurances. And while Carney and Trump both made the case that trade between neighbors is always a little bit more complicated, that explanation will eventually start to wear thin, especially when we see Europeans already signing new deals with the US. It's frustrating. If the US can hash out terms with Europeans across an ocean, a different regulatory system, a completely separate economic history, why is it taking so long with Canada, its closest trading partner? Carney says it's because the stakes are higher, that the relationship is deeper, more integrated, and therefore harder to untangle and renegotiate. And to some extent, I get that. This isn't just about tariffs. It's about jobs, cross-border supply chains, and the political baggage of NAFTA 2.0. But let's not forget, everyday Canadians are feeling the squeeze now. Manufacturers are stuck in limbo, and workers are getting tired of being a bargaining chip in a negotiation that keeps dragging with no clear end in sight. This is the risk of Carney's approach. The slow, calculated style that works at the Bank of Canada or G7 boardrooms. But political leadership demands more than steady hands. It demands results, especially when people are looking at their paychecks, their businesses, and wondering when relief is coming. I still believe that there's a clear path forward for Carney. If he can deliver something tangible soon, something people can actually feel in their day-to-day lives, it could be a defining moment, not just for his leadership, but for Canada's place in a shifting global landscape. So that's where things stand with Mark Carney. But let's pull back for a moment. It's been a busy week in Canadian politics and beyond, from cabinet ministers caught speeding to new tensions in housing and foreign policy. Here's This Week in 3 stories. We'll start at Queen's Park. A global news investigation found that vehicles registered to Doug Ford's cabinet ministers have been caught by automated speed cameras more than 20 times. The tickets add up to thousands of dollars, and while staff are saying that ministers don't always drive the cars themselves, it's another small but symbolic hit to a government that's already criticized for a rules for thee, but not for me attitude. You see here, optics matter. Even if staff or drivers were behind the wheel, it reinforces the sense that the government plays by its own rules. And it's not a great look for a team that's already dodged by integrity questions. The other side of this is, most of us have been caught by these speed cameras at some point, and nobody would really expect that government vehicles would be spared. Out west, a warning sign for the housing market. The CMHC is saying that about 2,500 condos are sitting unsold and empty in Metro Vancouver. That's a lot of concrete and glass. And experts say it could be a signal for a storm ahead for builders and buyers alike. After years of runaway growth, this could be an early sign that demand is flattening, especially with high interest rates and affordability fatigue. Construction slowdowns mean job losses in trades and development, and that is never a good thing. Governments are trying to boost housing supply, but this is suggesting that it's not just more homes we need, it's more homes that people can actually afford. And finally, a striking shift in public opinion. A nano survey for CTV finds that a majority of Canadians support the government's decision to recognize a Palestinian state, a move that just months ago would have been considered politically risky. The public sentiment has shifted. This marks a notable move in Canadian public opinion, especially given how divisive this issue has been over the past year. It also gives Carney's government political cover on a bold and courageous foreign policy move, but it also pressures the Conservatives to start clarifying their stance. It also reflects a divide in how Canadians view the conflict. It signals that the political ground on this issue just keeps moving. Okay, it's hot mic time. Speed cameras are back in the spotlight this week, with some municipalities doubling down on the importance of their use, while the Premier and critics are calling them cash grabs. So, what's the real story here? On one hand, speed cameras do save lives. Studies show that they reduce speeding and accidents, especially in school zones and high-risk areas. On the other hand, the timing of these cameras often smells a lot like a revenue strategy. More fines, more money for struggling municipalities. And the tech itself? It's not perfect. Mistakes happen. Some drivers are getting hit with tickets for speeding by just a few kilometers, with very little chance to appeal. So here's the question politicians don't always answer. Are we serious about road safety, or are we just desperate for cash? What do you think about speed cameras? Have you gotten a ticket from a speed camera? Do you think they're helping, or do you think they are just another revenue source for struggling municipalities? We'll talk about that and more in the next episode on the Radical Center.